Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're talking about a coin that every single American has held, spent, and probably forgotten about. It's the 1976 Lincoln Memorial Cent, the humble penny. You might be thinking, 1976? Bicentennial year. Everything from that year must be special, right? Well, when it comes to this little guy, the answer is a classic coin collector's answer. It depends if SO is that jar of old pennies in your closet hiding a fortune. Is a 1976 penny a rare, undiscovered gem? We're going to dive deep into its history, its different varieties, and finally answer the big question: what is a circulated 1976 penny really worth? Stick around, because the story of this common coin is more fascinating than you might think. 1976 was a monumental year in the United States. It was the bicentennial, the 200th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. The country was awash in red, white, and blue. There were tall ships, fireworks, and a massive sense of national pride. The U.S. Mint got in on the action in a big way. They released special commemorative coins, the bicentennial quarter, half dollar, and dollar, all featuring iconic revolutionary designs. But what about the penny? It looks exactly the same as the pennies from 1975 and 1977. Why no special design? Well, the Lincoln Cent had already gotten a major makeover back in 1959 for the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth. That's when the Lincoln Memorial Reverse was introduced, replacing the long-running wheat ears design. The Mint decided that this design, which includes the memorial building, was a sufficient and lasting tribute. So, no special bicentennial penny was ever officially, but only for part of the year. We'll get to that in a second. This is where we start to separate the common from the potentially interesting. Look right under the date on the obverse. This means it was made at the Philadelphia Mint. Made at the Denver Mint, this is the special one. Made at the San Francisco Mint. But for 1976, pennies were only made for collectors in special sets, not for general circulation. Here's one of the most important parts of the 1976 penny story. This was a year of transition. The price of copper had been rising for years, and by 1976, it was getting to the point where the metal in a penny was almost worth more than 1 cent. That's a recipe for disaster for the Mint.So. In the middle of the year, they changed the recipe. The composition switched from 95% copper to 99.2% zinc with a pure copper plating. This means there are two distinct types of 1976 pennies. The 1976 copper penny asterisk weighs about 3.11 grams. Has a richer, redder color, especially when new. The 1976 zinc penny asterisk weighs about 2.75 grams. Has a lighter, more grayish color, and if it's worn or damaged, you might see the silvery zinc core peeking through. For a circulated coin, this distinction is mostly academic in terms of value, but it's a fascinating piece of numismatic history. The copper pennies are the last of their kind for a little while, as the zinc version became the standard until the 1980s. The mints produced these coins in the billions. Philadelphia struck over 4.6 billion pennies. Denver struck over 4.2 billion pennies. When you have numbers that big, the coins have no numismatic premium in worn condition. They are worth their face value as currency. If you have a regular, circulated 1976 or 1976 D penny, it's not rare, it's not valuable. So, what separates a 1 cent piece from a penny that could be worth a few dollars, or even more? You need to look for these key things: a 1976 penny that is absolutely pristine. Remember the S mint mark? These were not released into circulation. They were only sold in government-issued proof sets and mint sets. So if you find a 1976 S penny, it will almost certainly be in brilliant, mirror-like proof condition. A 1976 S proof penny in its original packaging is worth about $2 to $4. If it's out of the pack and has been handled, the value drops significantly. This is the holy grail for 1976 pennies. A doubling of the date, "In God We Trust," and liberty caused by a misalignment in the die-making process. The 1976 DDO is a known variety and is valuable. A coin that was struck misaligned, showing a blank portion of the planchet. The value depends on how far off-center it is. A 10% off-center strike might be worth $5 to $10, while a 50% off-center could be $20 to $40. A coin struck without the restraining collar, making it slightly larger and flatter than a normal penny. A small premium.so. How do you become a penny detective? It's easy. Get a good magnifier. A simple 5x or 10x jeweler's loupe is perfect. Separate your 1976, 1976D, and any 1976 S pennies you might have, likely from an old set. Examine the date and lettering. Look closely at the 1976 and In God We Trust. Do you see any doubling, shadows, or thickening? That could be a double die. Check for errors. Is the design centered? Is the coin a weird shape? Is the rim complete on both sides? Assess condition. Is it worn smooth, or can you see all the fine details of Lincoln's hair and the memorial steps? So, the final verdict on the circulated 1976 Lincoln cent for 99.9% of them. They're exactly what they were intended to be, 1-cent pieces. They are common, they are history, but they are not a retirement fund. However, they represent a fascinating turning point in American coinage. The last year of the mostly copper penny, the 1984 Lincoln Memorial penny. On the surface, it's just a cent worth 1 penny. But as we always say, every coin has a story. So, the big questions we're answering today are, what is the 1984 penny really worth? Are there any rare varieties that could make it worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars? And should you start hoarding every single one you find? Let's get into it. First, let's set the stage. The year is 1984. Ronald Reagan is in the White House. Michael Jackson's Thriller is dominating the charts, and Ghostbusters is the movie to see. In the world of numismatics, the Lincoln Memorial cent design, which started in 1959, was well into its middle age. The 1984 penny is a modern coin, made primarily of zinc with a thin copper plating. This composition started in 1982, so the 1984 is a solidly zinc core penny. The mints in Philadelphia and Denver were churning these out at an incredible rate to meet public demand. And when I say incredible rate, I mean it. Let's look at the mintage numbers because this is key point. 1984 Philadelphia. No mint mark asterisk asterisk is staggering 8, 151, 079, 000 pennies. That's over 8 billion. 1984 D Denver D mint mark asterisk asterisk and even more staggering 5, 569, 238, 906 pennies. Over 5.5 billion. Combined, that's nearly 14 billion 1984 pennies. To put that in perspective, if you stack them all, you can make a column over 13,000 miles high. So, the sheer number tells us one thing immediately. In circulated condition, the vast majority of these coins are worth exactly 1 cent. So, let's tackle the circulate value head-on. If you have a 1984 or 1984 D penny that's been in circulation, you know it's scratched, it's a little dirty, the copper color is fading to a dull brown. Its value is its face value, 1 cent. Their circulated example might be worth the 10 or 25 cents you'd pay for it in a coin shop's bargain bin. Now, this is where we start to see a little bit of a premium. Uncirculated means the coin never entered public circulation. It came straight from a mint set, a bankroll, or was saved by a collector. For an uncirculated 1984 penny, the value is still modest, but it exists. A typical mint state, MS, 1984 or 1984, D penny in a nice red-brown or even full red condition might be worth between 25 cents and $1. If you have one that is absolutely flawless, graded by a service like PCGS or NGC as MS 67 red, that's a nearly perfect coin. It could be worth $1.15 to $1.30. But remember, that's for a coin that is essentially perfect, and it doesn't account for the cost of grading, which is often more than the coin's value.so, while there's a small premium for pristine. Examples. We're not talking about life-changing money here. Okay, team, you've been patient. This is the moment you've been waiting for. The reason you should carefully check every 1984 penny. We're talking about the famous and incredibly valuable 1984 double die obverse penny. A double die, occurs when the hub, the master tool that imprints a design onto a coinage die, shifts slightly between impressions. This creates a misalignment that is then transferred onto every coin struck by that faulty die. It's not a machine doubling or a strike error on a single coin. It's a genuine, collectible variety. On the 1984 doubled die, the doubling is most prominent on the date, the motto, "In God We Trust," and the word "Liberty." Look closely. You should see clear, distinct doubling, a shadow or a ghosting effect, especially on the 8 and the 4 of the date, and on the letters of "In God We Trust." It should be obvious, not something you need a microscope to see. Now, here's the critical part. This error only occurred on pennies from the Philadelphia Mint. There is no genuine 1984 deep double die. So you thin. The 1982 1-cent piece, or as most of us call it, the penny, this little guy, it's in almost every collection, it's in every junk jar, and it's the source of a lot of questions. Is it valuable? I heard there's a rare variety. Should I be hoarding them? Well, get ready, because we're going to answer all of that. We're talking mintages, metallurgy, major varieties, and we'll give you the real, honest value of the 1982 Canadian penny. Let's get into it. To understand the 1982 penny, we need to set the stage. 1982 was a year of significant change at the Royal Canadian Mint. First, and this is crucial, the portrait of Queen Elizabeth II on the obverse, or head side, was updated. For 1965 to 1981, the coin featured the mature portrait by Arnold Machin. But starting in 1982, they introduced the fourth portrait by Dora de Pétrie-Hunt. You can see the differences clearly. The hair is more detailed, the crown is different, and the overall look is sharper. All 1982 pennies have this new portrait, but the bigger change, the one that creates the key variety for this year, was the metal composition. For decades, Canadian pennies were made primarily of bronze, 98% copper, 1.5% zinc, and 0.5% tin. But in the early 80s, the price of copper skyrocketed. Suddenly, the metal in a penny was worth more than 1 cent. That's not a sustainable business model. So, mid-year in 1982, the Mint made a huge switch. They changed the planchet, or the blank coin, to a new composition, 98% zinc, with a thin plating of pure copper. This zinc core is why many pennies from the mid-80s onward look so awful when they corrode. That's the zinc bubbling up under the copper plating. This gives us our two main types of 1982 pennies. The 1982 bronze, copper, large date, and the 1982 zinc large date. There's no small date for 1982. That's a common misconception that applies to other years. So, how can you at home tell which one you have? I'm going to show you 3 foolproof methods. AB. On a perfectly unworn zinc penny, the edge will be all copper, but most circulated ones will show this telltale sign. The zinc coin has a duller, lower-pitched clunk. Once you've heard the difference, it's pretty obvious. All right, so now you know how to tell them apart. The next big question is, how many were made, and what are they worth? Let's talk numbers. 1982. Bronze ***, the minted for the bronze version was approximately 108 million coins. Now, that sounds like a lot, and it is. But remember, most of these were melted down, worn out, or lost over the last 40-plus years. 1982. Zinc ***, the minted for the zinc version was a massive 426 million coins. This is by far the more common type. So, let's get to the moment of truth. What is the circulated value of a typical 1982 penny? For the common 1982 zinc penny in circulated condition, it's worth exactly 1 cent. Maybe 2 cents if you really want to stretch it. There are just so many of them that they hold no premium. They are face value coins, or more accurately, filler coins for a collection. Now, for the 1982 bronze penny. This is where it gets a bit more interesting. In low grades, like what you'd find in your change. Let's call it good G4 to very fine VF20. The bronze penny has a small premium, but only because of its metal value. The copper in this penny is worth more than 1 cent. As of recording this, the intrinsic metal value of a bronze Canadian penny is about 2 to 3 cents. So, circulated, A 1982 bronze penny is generally worth 2 to 5 cents to a collector or a metal hoarder. It's not life-changing money, but it's a 200 to 500% return on face value. But wait, we're not done. Because within that massive mintage of zinc pennies, there's a legendary, valuable, and highly sought-after error. I'm talking about the 1982 7/6 three-legged quarter. Wait, no, wrong coin. Here's what happened. When the mint was creating the master dies for the new 1982 coin, it appears they initially. A 2/1. A word of caution. This variety is heavily faked by altering regular 1982 dates. If you think you have one, you must get it authenticated by a reputable grading service like PCGS or NGC. Don't buy one raw from an untrusted source to SO. Let's bring it all home. You're digging through your penny jar. What should you do? Get a magnet. Asterisk zinc pennies are not magnetic, but this is a quick way to rule out other metals. Weigh them. Asterisk find a 3.24 gram heavyweights. Those are your bronze coins worth a few cents each for their copper. Inspect the date carefully. Asterisk use a magnifying glass. Look for any traces of a 1 underneath the 2. You are looking for a ghostly serif at the base of the 2. You are hunting for a needle in a haystack, but what a needle it is. The 1982 Canadian penny is a fascinating piece of numismatic history. It marks the end of the pure bronze era and the beginning of the modern zinc age. For most of us, it's a common coin. But for the incredibly diligent and lucky few, it might just be a hidden treasure that I hope this deep dive was helpful. If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more coin mysteries, history, and value guides. Now I want to hear from you. Asterisk, have you ever found a 1982 bronze penny? Or do you think you've spotted the July 6th overdate? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and until next time, happy hunting.